Hello and welcome to the Media Bubble Podcast, the podcast that talks about movies, animes, comics, video games, and whatever we feel like. I'm your host, Fredrik, and with me as always is my co-host, Karol.
Hello.
So, do you want to explain what we are going to talk about today, Karol?
Sure can do. So, seeing that we miss a lot of movies, seeing that we don't have much time, we wanted to talk about one of the later releases, namely Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
This movie came out 2018. Is that still considered new?
Probably not. As I said, I mean, I don't know. Like before we made this podcast, I didn't really put time to see any new movies. I just kept to my video games.
Oh, okay. So this has been an opportunity for you to watch some movies.
Yeah, actually, yes. So, speaking of the movies, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I think it's a good idea if we go through the plan a little bit about what happened in the movie, and then give our opinions on it.
Yeah, just one thing that I want to talk about before we talk about the movie. What's your relationship to Spider-Man before watching this?
Spider-Man is my husband.
So Bigfoot is your husband and Spider-Man?
Exactly.
Bigfoot is in another episode. Cut that part out.
I mean, we don't have to. We are all in a big polyamorous molecule.
Okay, Karol has multiple husbands.
Yes.
Well, the question was, what was your relationship to the Spider-Man franchise before this movie?
My relationship is, well, let's see, who doesn't know Spider-Man?
Yeah, but did you watch some cartoon or the movies or?
I think I seen the original cartoon going on Cartoon Network.
I saw that one too. For me, it was on a channel called Jetix.
I only remember Jetix from watching Totally Spies, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I did that too.
It was a good show. But basically, anyone who's into media knows about Spider-Man.
He's kind of a huge character. He's kind of a huge character, isn't he?
Yes, I mean, just think about all the toys, all the comics, all the media out there about Spider-Man. And not only that, with the not so recent spike of popularity of superheroes through or because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man, Homecoming, what were the later titles? Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Another third one.
The third one hasn't come out yet, but I don't remember what that title actually is. It is out, but I don't remember it.
I know there will be some time
travel involved. Do you want me to
involved.
search it? Let's see. No Way Home.
Yeah. So I think the plot of that one is that Peter goes to Doctor Strange and he wants to change the past so that no one will know that he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, kind of.
But that screws some things up. But that's another movie. Right now we're talking about Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I can just tell you my relationship to Spider-Man is, I guess, kind of the same. I watched the 90s cartoons. I also watched a show called Spectacular Spider-Man. That one was kind of good. I've also watched all the live action movies and I also played the 2018 video game. I really liked that one.
Yeah, I saw you told me that you really enjoyed it.
It was really fun.
Yeah. And I think it's a great time to introduce more stuff about Spider-Man because it's on the height of the popularity right now. So that's where Spider-Verse comes in. We have a new protagonist, who is Miles, who steps
Yes.
into the shoes of being a Spider-Man.
Yeah, he gets bitten by the same radioactive spider as Peter Parker once did. And he gets the same kind of powers like Peter Parker's Spider-Man, so he kind of becomes the second Spider-Man of his world.
Exactly. And I just for like a warning, we're gonna go into spoiler territory, so just keep it in mind if you haven't seen the movie yet.
I don't think we have mentioned this in our other episodes where we talk about movies, but when we get this specific about the movie, then we're going to tell spoilers.
Probably yes. So, beginning of the movie, Miles, he is tired of school. He got into a new school and he doesn't feel accepted. So at night, instead of going home, he hangs out with his uncle, doing graffiti and just being up to no good. That's where Miles gets bitten. And as the story progresses, like Miles learns all about his powers and he meets the Spider-Man of his world. That Spider-Man dies a few minutes afterwards.
Yeah,
And
kind of almost exactly as he meet him, he dies.
Yeah, it sucks. Like, I mean, just imagine the scenario where Miles doesn't meet anyone else from the other splinters of reality. Like, it would be so sad. And seeing that it was Kingpin, I think, who killed Spider-Man, and the reason is Kingpin is trying to bring back his family that he lost. Because he was just a generally bad dude and his wife tried to leave him, and when she did that, she ended up in a car crash, and he feels like he wants to bring another family from another universe to him.
Yeah, it's not, he can't really bring back his versions of his family, but he's trying to take another universe of his family.
It's like Beyond Two Souls, but not.
Yeah.
So he is working like this particular reality accelerator thingamajig, and because of he's using that, and because of the fight that took place, the machine breaks, and different Spider-Men from different universes are thrown into Miles's world.
Yeah.
And they have to team up to break this machine. All of them get back home and also defeat Kingpin and Dr. Octopus. And Prowler too, he's there too.
Yeah, kind of the main point in this movie is Miles Morales meeting all these different universes of Spider-Man.
Yeah, but I feel like, I mean, the main trio, Miles, Peter, and Gwen, are like likable and developed, and I like that because they
are much more. The other three is kind of just a one gimmick thing.
Yeah, and it's sad because we have what's her name? I have notes. Not as
Penny Parker.
Exactly. So Penny, she like does a thing in the movie. Like she fixes the USB that Miles breaks when he is out and about and try his powers. But she comes, she fixes the thing, and then her involvement in the story just stops.
The three of them kind of felt more to me like comic reliefs than anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, especially Peter Parker.
Yeah, who is literally a comic relief.
Yeah, he's a pig.
Yeah. So maybe you can go through a rundown of all the main characters and say how we feel about them.
If we go, let's see, how many characters are there in this movie? The main character is Miles Morales, which is a character I knew I knew something about Miles Morales. I knew that he was a popular comic book character, but I think this was the first time I've ever seen Miles Morales, with the exception of the video games.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think I've I've touched upon many media with Miles in it.
So that was kind of interesting. I guess he's this Puerto Rican black Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I feel like he feels pretty different from everyone else. Like he's a teen. He likes music. He likes to express himself. He's artistic. Which is and he likes being like he's like a people person. So it's also in contrast with like Peter, who like he's more of a nerdy, shy tech guy.
That also liked photography.
Exactly. And it also contrasts with Gwen, who is confident and kicks ass, and also like a little bit punk with that she plays in a band.
Yeah, those three were more developed. There's also Miles Morales' dad, uncle, who's in this film, so you get to see a bit of his family in this film.
Yeah, so Miles has a father, a mother, and a uncle. So his father is a police officer, his mother is I think, a nurse, and his uncle is employed, but at the beginning of the movie we don't really know what he does. We only know that Miles's father doesn't approve of him hanging out with him.
Yeah, we later find out that we have already told that we talk about spoilers here, so I guess we can just say that Miles' uncle is one of the villains in the movie.
Yeah, and honestly, like, almost like, because at one point, like, we see Prowlers like going at it and just like fighting and just like doing really bad stuff. He's basically a henchman for the bad guys. But I didn't think, or like at the beginning, I didn't pick up that he could be Miles's uncle, because it felt like
I actually knew that part before going into the film, so that didn't surprise me so much.
How did you know?
I knew a little bit about the character, I guess. I knew that specific point.
Because I thought that you could also be maybe spoiled online. Like,
I have never read a Miles Morales comic book, but I know a tiny bit about his character.
I mean, yeah, you read comic books, so like Spider-Man, they hang out pretty often in those.
Yeah, maybe. I just knew in some way. I think I knew from some video on the internet or something like that.
Because like I didn't, and I thought it was pretty interesting to make him a bad guy, because like we have this confirmation from the beginning that Miles's father doesn't want Miles to hang out with Uncle Lewis. But I never know, like, he seemed like a pretty okay dude. He like listened to Miles and let him express himself and like give his outlet to his creative side.
Yeah.
Which kind of led to him being bitten and just like leaving to everything else. But like, yeah. And it wasn't until like Miles started hiding from the Prowler in his apartment that it clicked to me like, oh, Louis is the Prowler.
Oh, okay. That's where you found out.
Yeah, because like
yeah.
Because I felt like, I mean, why would the Prowler come to Louis' apartment? Because he didn't know that Miles was in there, or Spider-Man.
One thing is, when the Prowler finds out that Spider-Man is Miles Morales, isn't that the exact same point where doesn't he die shortly after that?
Yeah, so it ends up it is a little bit forward in the movie. So they get back the USB stick, and they also they did a lot of stuff. They also infiltrated the lab where Kingpin founded everything, and they go back to Aunt May's place where she acts like the steward of all the technology Peter had. So then they find them as they were following Miles to the hideout. Battle breaks out, and Prowler like hangs Miles from the rooftop and tries to kill him, and Miles like takes off his mask and says like, come on, don't do this. And that's where Louis understands like, oh, it's actually Miles, I can't do this. So Kingpin just lowers his window and straight up shoots him on the roof.
Oh, okay. So that, yeah. So that happened.
Yeah. So there comes this another. It's a. I mean, it's a neat thing because like every single Spider-Man in this story had someone close to them die. For Peter, it was his uncle. For Gwen, it was her best friend. For Penny, it was her father. For Porky Pig, it was his hamburger, I think, or like hot dog. I don't know who Spider-Noir lost, but it was probably also someone. Also probably his uncle. It was
probably something dark.
Yeah. He burns matches to the end just to feel something.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was like, yes, it keeps up with this Spider-Man tradition that they lose someone close to them, but it also gives it like a little bit more flair that, oh, it's his uncle, but also it was this situation where he was a bad guy, but he didn't try to kill Miles at the end.
Do you want to actually? One difference is in the video games that I played, that 2018 one. It's actually Miles' father that dies in that video game, and the Prowler lives.
Okay, so who is the Prowler in the video game?
That's still his uncle.
Holy smokes!
So it changed there. I don't know really which one is the correct in the comic books, but yeah, that's something that happened.
I mean, in the movie, there was this point about like Miles' father not approving of Spider-Man because he just saw him as a vigilante who a lawless vigilante. So it like at the end scene when Miles is fighting with Kingpin, it feels like because like his father sees that the Spider-Man can do good, it later inspires Miles to keep being Spider-Man.
Actually, one of my favorite scenes in this film is probably when his father is talking outside his dorm room, and he is supposed to explain that his uncle has just died to Miles.
Yeah.
And it's just this powerful, sweet scene of him telling his son that he feels like he is special and he can do much more than what he thinks he can.
Yeah, it was really sweet. There was something I wanted to say. I mean, like going back a little bit to the situation, because when Louis died, it was Miles' father who found him at the place, and he also saw Spider-Man leaving the place with his brother's dead body.
Yeah.
It was horrific. Like it was a very sad scene.
After that scene, also it's kind of when Miles finally accept being Spider-Man in some way, you can say. It's that scene where he jumps off the building with this new black Spider-Man costume.
I mean, props to Miles for making the new costume. Like he only spray painted the whole thing, but it looks good.
Actually, is that the same costume he wore that was from kind of like dollar store or something?
No, so in the beginning he buys this like just like cosplay like costume from Stan Lee himself, and it's like anyone can be Spider-Man sign behind him. But later, like seeing that Aunt May, she is like the
that's
Batman.
right. She had all the Peter Parker's old costumes.
Yeah, so thanks to her, Miles could grab one of them and repaint it into his own suit. But I think maybe keeping on the track with all the characters, let's talk about the alternate universe Peter Parker.
Yeah, but before Yeah, we can talk about Peter Parker, but I just feel like we need to explain Miles Universe Peter Parker before, because that Peter Parker is like the dream Peter Parker. He succeeded in pretty much everything, and he lives a pretty happy life.
I mean, he is stated to be like in his 30s, like 25, 20, like he's a university student, I think.
Peter Parker?
Yeah.
No. I think he's an adult in this film.
Is he?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to have been Spider-Man for a really long while, and while he still loses his Uncle Ben in this universe, it seems like everything else has gone really well for him in this universe. It's kind of supposed to be when the other universe Spider-Man comes in, it's kind of supposed to mirror in that way that universe Spider-Man's lives hasn't gone that well.
I mean, the alternate Peter Parker, like he invested in a Spider-Man themed restaurant. which
good investment.
No, but I think like, because I remember distinctly that the alternate Parkers, he is 40 years old, and I know that this universe Parker, like Miles's Spider-Man, he was like half his age, so I believe he was in his like 25th, 26th, around that age.
Okay. You're not in college when you're 25, 26. That's kind of more like...
I said university, not college.
Oh, maybe. You probably could be still in college in 25, but anyway, we're not supposed to talk about college.
Yes, let's not talk about college. So seeing that this Spider-Man's life was like pretty much perfect so far, he dies not so perfectly, and we're introduced to the alternate Peter Parker, who is a 40-year-old mess with a gut, who invested in a Spider-Man themed restaurant, and because he was so afraid of being a father, he broke up with Mary Jane?
Yes.
And now he lives alone, and he tries to like pick up his life, but not really, because instead of working out he eats pizza. Like he is at a low point.
Yeah, he's still a good Spider-Man. He knows all the moves and things like that, but you notice that his life's he's not in a happy place in his life, you can say.
Yeah, I think I wrote I rate this Spider-Man ruined marriage out of 10.
Yeah, the thing that he really wants in this film is kind of to get the courage back to get together with his universe Mary Jane again.
Which he gets to meet, like this, like Miles's Mary Jane, he meets at the party that Kingpin throws.
This movie is so confusing to explain.
It really is. So let's say, okay, let's call Miles's Spider-Man, like Miles's Spider-Man, and the alternate
like
one,
we have done
just
before.
Call it Peter Parker.
Okay.
So Peter Parker, it's sad. Like, I mean, he is a really fun character because he like really lets himself go. He mooches off Miles, but he is still, like, as you said, he got all the moves and all the knowledge. He's 40 years old, but he's like still a superhero. And his theme is like accepting that he can be a good mentor and be a good father if he were to have a child. Because Miles is kind of like he is his like protege, Miles to Peter, and like he looks up to him.
Yeah. It kind of was a point where in the movie where he was trying to justifying him staying in Miles' universe, but Miles kind of tells him, "Go home, man."
Yeah, I mean, exactly, like, because like it's still Peter Parker. He values other people above himself, but like if he stayed, he would die with time.
Well, should we talk about Gwen?
Yeah, so she is introduced after, she's introduced after Peter. So when they both meet, like Peter and Miles, they decide that they should like look up the information about this mechanism that brought everyone to Miles's world, and they go to the facility where, along the way, like Peter is supposed to teach Miles about being Spider-Man. So they take the bus, and
Gwen.
in the facility, as they break in, they discover that Miles has like invisibility powers and like electric shocks, and they also stumble upon Gwen, and she helps them outrun Doc Ock from the facility.
Yeah. What can you say about Gwen? Is she the love interest of this film, or I don't feel like she is actually. I take that back. She's kind of just a cool girl, you can say.
I mean, like, I think we can see that in the beginning Miles thought of her as cool and like that he is a man and he should go to her and say like, hey.
Hey.
When Uncle Louis did that to Miles, I was like, I couldn't. I just started laughing. But yeah, I feel like maybe Miles was sweet on her in the beginning, but it just developed into friendship.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing that they can't be together because they're not in the same universe.
Exactly, and Gwen would die if she stayed. So like Gwen's deal was that she didn't have anyone close to her. Like when she was Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, like she lost her own best friend, who was Peter Parker in the universe, because he turned into the Croc, I think.
Yeah, I actually don't remember that part, but maybe he turned into something.
Yeah, so Killer Croc. Yeah, so Peter turned into
Killer Croc is a Batman villain.
But I know like it was a crocodile person, and since then lizard.
Okay.
So since then she was pretty closed off on letting anyone like get close to her. But because then she also landed in another universe, who like she was even more alone, and she like with time learns that like she has friends even if they're not in the same universe. She has people who she can call friends.
Yeah. Do you know about Do you know about the comics Gwen Stacy?
Not really. Sadly,
well, in the older times, Carol, in the like 60s or 70s or something, she was Peter Parker's main love interest, who died because Green Goblin killed her. You can say.
Because male protagonists need a woman to die to progress their story arc.
Yeah, but the thing with a lot of love interest dying is that they always come back, sometimes eventually. Gwen never did.
But why do you think that was? Like, with so many revives and rebirths and like so many ways to bring back a character in the comics, why hasn't she ever come back?
Well, I guess they started this thing with Mary Jane, and I just guess that that worked or something.
Yeah, maybe just Mary Jane stuck.
But this Gwen Stacy is, as we said, from another universe, so she is not really connected to that Gwen Stacy from the other Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, exactly.
This is so hard to explain.
This is what happens when a movie has interdimensional travel. You just have to specify everything.
Yeah. There's also 3 other Spider-Mans who we have kind of already explained, I guess. There's not much more to them, to be honest.
Yeah, so we can even do like the movie did. Like they introduced them at the same time, and they all did their backstories at the same time, making everything incomprehensible.
Yeah.
So we have Spider Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider Pork.
Yes, Peter or Spider Noir is kind of this black and white character who's always in the wind, and everything about him is supposed to be kind of dark. He's
It's
kind
in the
of
name.
he's kind of the Batman Spider-Man.
Exactly. It's like past World War II, like pulp comic version of Spider-Man, like adult detective, skulking the shadows,
Yeah.
beaming up bad guys in the alleyways. You know the deal. You know the type.
Yeah, beating up Nazis.
Then we have Penny, who is a hacker slash girl genius who pilots a mech who is controlled by her best friend Spider, and
Yeah.
and her father died.
Mm.
And she has Heelys, who she uses to move around in the movie, which is cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have Spider Pork.
Peter Porker, which I kind of feel gets the most attention of these three, to be honest.
He shouldn't.
Don't you like him, Carol?
No. I find it annoying.
Okay.
Like, he didn't need to be there. What did he do? How did he advance the plot?
I don't think he did. Yeah, he bought or he fought some guys at the end of the film.
Yeah, like, I don't, like, a whole movie could go out without him, and nothing would change, or another character would do the thing he did.
Yeah, but isn't that the kind of... couldn't you say that about all these three characters?
I mean, at least Penny was justified with her fixing up the USB stick they needed to kill the system the system that brought them here. Spider Noir, I don't know what he did either. Like, he just dotted Miles, and that was
Yeah.
it.
So, something that I would like to talk about, because I kind of feel like we're done with the characters. I would like to talk about the animation a little bit, because that's kind of my favorite part. Something about this movie is the animation. They kind of try to make it feel like you're watching a comic book. Like in their faces, for an example, there's these extra black lines that doesn't really need to be there, but to get a more comic book feeling, they kind of add them in. And there's other points where, like, the background of the films, they kind of have these
This unfocused dizzy
lines.
effect.
Yeah, they kind of get this effect where they're kind of supposed to feel more like you're watching a comic book in some way, and it's kind of cool. You can check out some videos on YouTube. I find it really interesting.
It's pretty cool. Like, they specifically made that Miles and other characters, they move like their frames are skipping, like it was animated by hand.
Mm.
But I have to also touch up on what you said about the backgrounds. In the beginning, like when I started watching the movie, I couldn't look past that a lot of the backgrounds were unfocused, or there
Yeah.
was this like weird blurry effect on them, and like everything looks stunning. Why can't I focus on the backgrounds as well? Why this weird filter over everything?
Well, that's kind of they did that on purpose, because if some part of the background was blurry, there was some other points that you were supposed to have the eyes look at in that case.
I guess so, but I just found it weird to look at. Like, I know there is a point with this, but I still prefer that, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that.
They also add these kind of comic book lines. So when a character, like you see in this Spider-Man picture that I have right here, when he's
Yeah.
surprised, he get these lines around him. There's also a point where Miles throws a bagel at some doctor or something like that, and the words bagel literally comes up when he's hit by it.
Yeah, I know all these small details.
So one of my favorite parts of this movie is the animation, because some of the colors that they also use are amazing. I feel like it's so fun to look at this movie.
I also want to praise another thing about Spider-Verse. Like in the beginning, it took maybe 10 minutes to establish like Miles's whole deal. Like he was well liked at his previous school, but when he goes into his new school, he feels pressured and like his expectations are taking toll of him. And then he gets to hang out with his cool uncle after school and feel free, but he can't leave school because his family has so much expectations of him. Like 10 minutes and like I'm already hooked. I know the deal. Like Miles feels bad at this new school, but he can't leave. Okay, so and also I wanted to praise the comedy. Like there were so many like laugh out loud moments throughout. Like for example, when Miles was testing out his powers, and he was preparing to jump from the building, and he was like hyping himself up and just like. And then it cuts away to him like walking down the stairs to a smaller building.
Okay.
Like yeah, it makes sense.
It's not normal to want to jump off a building.
Yeah, but he needed to test out his powers.
Yeah.
And it also like there is a callback in almost at the end when Miles is finally confident in himself, like when he jumps off the building. There was a small detail that his sticky powers, they're being controlled whenever he's afraid or not. If he relaxes, he can just let go. But at the like almost end scene when he was jumping from the building, and this like iconic scene when he falls down and the whole like cityscape is upside down. Like when he jumps off and he pushes himself off the building, like a lot of the glass pieces are flying with him. That's because he's still afraid, but he still makes the jump into the unknown. Like I thought it was such a cool detail.
So in kind of a conclusive way, what did you feel about the whole film?
I thought it was great. I liked the main cast. I liked that they made May like be important to the plot because she kept all Peter's stuff and she was relevant. I liked that they still kept like the Spider-Man tradition, but made Miles like his own character, who I'm rooting for. And I can't wait to see the sequel. Like they teased another Spider-Man at the end credits.
Yeah. My feelings on the film is it's a great film. I can tell you that for certain. It's a really good film. But I kind of felt when this film came out that people on the internet, I felt like was praising this like it was one of the best it was one of the best animated films ever created. It was like when list on the best animated films of the decades came out, and this was like number 1 or 2 or something like that. I don't feel it's on that level. I would still say that it's a great film. I feel like some people overhype it. Yes, I don't really feel like it's one of the all-time best animated films, but I would still say it's a really good and great film.
And I agree.
It's a really good Spider-Man film too.
Yeah, it really is. And I feel your answer because like I had the same experience. Maybe the reason for why I didn't want to check out this movie, it was like it was really well praised online, but I felt like, oh, it's a good movie. I guess I can just watch it later, I suppose. Like nothing I have to see. Just like, oh, it's a good movie. I can just like.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that, like, we cannot look past that. This is like the first time on screen when Spider-Man was black.
Yeah,
so
Spider-Man 2018 was really hype at this point too. Like the Marvels, the MCU, the 2018 Spider-Man game, this movie came out. Spider-Man was at a really high point of his career, you can say.
Yeah, so introducing like a blockbuster movie with a black protagonist and it being Spider-Man, like hell yeah, why shouldn't be people of color like be hyped about this? But I agree, it's a really good movie. If you have a time, watch it. It's funny, it's creative, and it's fun. Not like masterpiece level, but it's really cool.
Yeah, it's not a masterpiece, but it is a really good movie. I think I have gotten all my feelings of it. Should we end it here, Karol, or?
Okay, before we end, I have one more thing. Like,
okay.
It's so silly. Like the main, I know this is a little bit late, but like Kingpin's motivation to this whole debacle. He wanted to bring his family back because they were dead from an accident, but it was all his fault. Like he was a bad guy. He's like a mobster. He kills people, and his wife is like, I cannot live with a murderer, and she then dies a tragic accident, and he's like, no, the consequences of my own actions. It's hilarious. I laughed out loud when they showed the montage of them dying. But besides that, those were all my feelings.
Do you have some more funny scenes?
I mean, Uncle Louis killed me when a Spider-themed restaurant, and just like the whole montage of Peter Parker's life going down the drain, him being a divorce guy. Yeah, I think those were it.
Okay. Well, as always, thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed it as much as we have. Don't forget to follow, hit that bell icon, or follow us on socials like Twitter. See you again next episode, and have a wonderful day.
Goodbye!